Issue 20. After a dishonest title picture, we start off with Sonic trying to find and destroy Eggman's antimatter machine, because he can create antimatter now. And he's bringing along Sally just to hang out with her, even though she can't fight robots at all. What was the point of her even showing up? Well, I guess it does serve a purpose later, I'll get to that. Sally nags Sonic for making jokes because with an antimatter device, Eggman can make all of his stuff invisible as well as unstoppable. Because we all know antimatter is invisible. It seems like a rather advanced concept science-wise to use for a kids comic. Like they're not even trying to explain why we should just assume it's going to be invisible. Nicole, who is missing from the previous issue because she wasn't necessary, and I guess they didn't want people who hadn't read In Your Face yet to be confused, tells Sally that she was able to sense a heavy concentration of antimatter emissions. Because she has an antimatter sensor programmed into her. You know, just in case. Rotor sure was prepared. Sonic ends up getting trapped, and Sally's inexplicable caution turns out to be right by sheer coincidence, even though she had no reason to believe Sonic wouldn't turn out fine before that point. Well, I guess they just really had to make her look right. Eggman shows up and explains that he just started a rumor about the antimatter machine to lure him there, and was unable to get the device to work, before saying that he's going to roboticize him. He surrounds him with robots, and Sonic in desperation throws out a bomb that Rotor gave him that he was apparently hiding in his spines until now, and plans to cut through the door with a sonic spin before the bomb will explode. But he trips on something before he can do a spin dash at all. Why didn't he just do a spin dash while standing still instead of thinking he had to walk and thus risk tripping on something? Obviously, as the title picture said, this will lead to the comic trying to mislead you about Sonic dying in a kid's comic, as we're made to think it exploded on him. When obviously he's going to turn out to be just fine. Sally rejoins the freedom fighters in a bush with her hair messy, and I guess it's supposed to be bruises on her face since there's no dirt in the building, even though it looks like dirt. And she fulfills her true purpose for being brought to the base by being able to explain that she barely managed to avoid the explosion at Robotnik's headquarters. In an honestly kind of sad moment, she says that Sonic died sacrificing himself for them. And I can almost imagine hearing this line of Sally's voice acted in a really sad, convincing way. For some reason, only Tails goes into denial about Sonic getting killed, and only through sheer admiration of him, which flies in the face of the whole stages of grief thing. Of course, Tails is being genre-savvy here, but only by sheer coincidence. Sonic immediately shows up now invisible and intangible, and brags that Robotnik just barely missed him, with the comic not bothering to explain enough about what he even meant by that. When a sealed door just misses him, and he can't see his reflection in a puddle, he finally figures out what happened to him. Why did it take him that long? He then rushes back to his friends, who can't see him and are dedicating a statue to their fallen comrade, and the logical thing for him to do right afterwards would be to return with a pen and paper. I guess being intangible means he wouldn't be able to pick anything up to write with. Well then. You better hope for a miracle, especially since if he stays like that for too long, unable to pick up stuff to eat and drink, he'll be doomed to dehydrate. I like how Rotor points out that Tails is their best artist, since it makes perfect sense with Tails being destined to be a genius engineer, and being mentioned earlier to be able to build a sculpture. But it's like weird, Tails you mentioned to be an artist. So like, it's almost as if he was leading up to being a genius artist, and it's honestly a miracle that he managed to be more of an engineer because of Rotor instead of an artist. Although, I guess being able to build a sculpture from metal would be an easy an easy bridge to being an engineer. Sonic at least tries to think of the positives of the situation, which is in character for him, and then realizes there's no point and kicks the rock in frustration, which hilariously causes him to scream in pain rather than not being hurt by it at all. I wasn't expecting that, partly because usually when cartoon characters kick hard stuff, they don't get hurt by it, like Sally kicking the giant metallic gorilla. So this was a nice diversion, even some good slapstick against Sonic for once. Being able to feel pain reveals to Sonic that he's not a ghost, and the frog reveals that he was able to hear his voice. What? It better be another magic frog, or else I call bullshit, because why would a mere frog hear him when his friends didn't? Sonic realizes that when the antimatter machine exploded, it made him invisible, intangible, and silenced his voice, and only his voice, despite him just saying that the frog was able to hear him screaming. Pretty sure that counts as his voice. But anyways, Sonic bets that 2 of those effects magically wore off. I hope that's why the frog was able to hear him. How glitchy and terrible was that machine that those effects could wear off? I guess that's what Eggman meant by he couldn't get the machine to work. And that's fine by me, since something is ridiculously overpowered and ridiculous as an antimatter machine without even using a magical artifact like a Chaos Emerald to justify it. It's so crazy that I prefer Eggman barely being able to make it work. Gotta have some limitations, especially to make up for him being able to make a time machine with no fanfare. Sonic finds a note from Tails telling him that his friends are going to Robotropolis to avenge his death. And Sonic is smart enough to realize they'll all be killed because none of them are as capable as he is. Except Tails, in theory, being able to move really fast, but he's not allowed to be useful yet. He was here though, although Sonic getting home and not finding his friends there would have worked just as well. Also, I think it's pretty amusing how at the end it says, P.S. If you are dead, then pay no attention to this letter. Tails clearly wasn't thinking it all the way through when he wrote that, was he? Sally's brilliant plan is to have only one of them take on Robotnik. The only chance they have right now is to hope to overwhelm him with sheer numbers. Like maybe they can all tackle him at once and make him fall over? See, he's just gonna pick them off one by one. I guess she's really desperate? I find it really intriguing the implication that Sally is trying to she's finally gotten a clue and realized that she has to kill Eggman to get anything actually done. Because she tells the Freedom Fighters that she wants to avenge the death of Sonic by doing the same thing, like, now it's up to us to finish the job. But what if that's not actually what she's trying to do? It's frustrating because we don't know for sure. This is an intriguing concept. Maybe, like it implies that maybe if Sonic actually died, Sally would finally get a clue and realize that they have to take more drastic measures than that. But, spoiler alert, well, Sonic does supposedly die for a while later in the comic, and she doesn't assassinate him. She doesn't even try. So much for that. Sonic finds his way onto Eggman's flying airship off-screen, grabs the controls from him to inconvenience him snidely, and has the amusing idea of pretending to be a ghost coming back to take his revenge on him. Come to think of it, this kind of disproves ghosts in the comic, doesn't it? Because if there are ghosts in the comic, why didn't the ghosts of everyone that Eggman got killed come back to haunt him as essentially solo freedom fighters? They'd probably have taken him down, since they'd be way harder for him to deal with than injurable living beings. After Eggman refuses to believe in ghosts, hopefully for that very reason, Sonic makes the airship fly really dangerously, which doesn't end up killing Eggman and Snively, unfortunately, until Eggman finally says he believes him. And I giggled at this line. I want you to give Mobius back to the Freedom Fighters, exercise, and get a hairpiece. See, this is how you do comedy in Sonic right. Have characters talk how they actually would, instead of making puns and stand-up comedy routines because the writers want them to. I hope Sonic doesn't actually believe Eggman's honest with giving up though. That'd be pretty stupid of him. I guess he's just doing it to be, like, playful. And Sally shows a playful side to her by agreeing to let Eggman think Sonic's a ghost for some reason, after he finally reunites with her. So Eggman and Snively leave the plane with a parachute, characteristically bickering with him over wanting to get his parachute first, jump out of the plane first. And Sonic reunites with his friends at long last. And the ending of the story has Snively decide not to warn Eggman that Sonic's alive quite yet, because Eggman's actually started exercising because of Sonic and looks ridiculously amusing to him while doing so, all the while repeating that he doesn't believe in ghosts as a madness mantra to calm himself down. I have a hard time believing he was actually going to give Mobius back. So why did he bother trying to follow the rest of what Sonic ordered? And I just noticed that he's also gotten a hairpiece, because it's not the same color as his mustache, so I didn't even register it as hair at first. Why would he ever bother with a hairpiece that's the wrong color? Was he in a hurry and just grabbed the first one he saw on the shelf? Did his hairpiece collecting robot screw up? I'm guessing the reason he gives up on hairpieces is because Sonic teases him for it later. And I wish it was made more clear that Snively's not just letting him stay like this out of amusement for his predicament, but also because it's his karma for pushing him to get a parachute first and yell at him for jumping out of a plane faster than him. How the hell did Snively jump out of it faster than him, when he was just pushed to the floor to be prevented from getting his parachute first, and would need to get up off the floor first? And another thing I thought of, why didn't it take... What's the in-universe explanation for why it took Snively so many issues to finally actually show up? Was it that he was, I don't know, like sick with measles or something? After this story, the funniest one up until now, we see a dialogue-less scene where Sally uses a grappling hook on a lone mission to get over a wall with a SWAT bot in front of it, shock the SWAT bot to death with what I presume is Nicole. See, there's a believable function for her. And of course, right after I say that, they used Nicole as a Deus Ex Machina to override the security lock. Because of course she can do that, somehow. Doesn't feel cheap at all. It's at least slightly more believable that Sally would be capable in the mission without Sonic protecting her when she's got Nicole around to make her more useful. But even then, well, one, anyone could use Nicole, not just her. And two, in this case you can attribute the credit to both her and Nicole, diluting Sally's impact a bit. Sally goes into the building and Nicole says that she's decrypting, establishing an access code, and command link achieving, all through the power of plot convenience. At least she's saying this near a computer this time so that there's at least some believability to it, but still. Nicole might as well be a magic wand that hacks into technology at the press of a button. You know, come to think of it, is this really so different from what would have been if Sally was having the Freedom Emeralds? She probably would have been able to do the same things, and because to be actually honest about it being magic, it makes actual sense. I still like Nicole though, but she's still overpowered with no explanation. Sally starts a destruct sequence, all by herself, so yay, I'm proud of her. And then she runs into Jeffrey for the first time, who threatens to put her to sleep with knockout gas, being convinced that it should have been obvious who he is and what he was holding. Why? Talk about delusional, especially since, as he mentions later, he likes to keep a low profile. So why would it be obvious to her who he is? Why the hell is he, a Mobian who isn't working for Eggman, seeming to be going against a freedom fighter? Oh, so he really is a good guy? Why the hell didn't he recognize his own kingdom's princess on sight? What an idiot! Didn't he have internet before Eggman showed up? I'm willing to give this guy a chance though, but he really didn't make a good first impression. He immediately salutes Sally as he should have done in the first place. Good thing he thought to ask who she was before knocking her out, and explains that he's late of, whatever that means, her father's secret service, and current leader of the Rebel Underground. I mean, in no means he used to be part of the Secret Service, but it really feels like that sentence was missing a word there. Late leader or something would have made much more sense. It's not like this story has translation issues, so it's written in English. And the Rebel Underground. Does he think that there's only one Rebel Underground, and not... Really? He thinks he's the only group of freedom fighters? And where is he living if not Knothole? Because he can't be living in Knothole, or else he would have already known about Sally and her being a freedom fighter. So how is he living in a place without being found by Eggman? Are there more than one Knothole? So this is revealing for the first time the concept that there are other freedom fighters out there that we don't know about, which makes a lot of sense. And I guess it also makes sense that our heroes don't know about them because it's not like they have widespread internet access or a telephone line or world controlled by Eggman. So how would they all be able to communicate and unite each other into one force in the first place? However, you'd think Sonic would have run into more of these freedom fighters while dealing with Eggman, and it becomes more and more implausible as time goes on that by sheer coincidence, he never runs into, say, Shard while he's dealing with Eggman. It's like the other freedom fighters manage to plan their schedules around Sally and her friends so that they won't get seen by them, when the smartest thing to do would actually be to join forces with them, so that all the freedom fighters in the world would be teaming up as one major force against Eggman. But no, I guess the secret freedom fighters is such a great idea, because it's totally possible to keep rebelling against Eggman a secret from Eggman. He'll never find out with his plot convenience modders, or living being detectors. And after Sally admits that she wasn't aware of the other rebel resistance, and is told that they for some reason want to keep a low profile and are somehow able to do so, the issue ends, with his story to be continued in the Sally miniseries after issue 23. I don't know why the Sally miniseries is after issue 23 when it's clearly the end. It doesn't, the end of this issue, it doesn't really make any sense. And why is she looking suspicious of him anyways? Didn't he just say that he was, like, going to blow up Eggman's headquarters? And he's a Mobian who's obviously going to be against Eggman. Why wouldn't he be? Why would the Freedom Fighters ever think that any non-roboticized people wouldn't be against Eggman at this point? So how paranoid is she that she is suspicious of him? The previous issue and this issue was written by Mike Kantarovic and Ken Penders. And honestly, this story was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Well, the plot was predictable. I mean, of course Sonic's not dead, and of course things end up being fine, which made it all the more frustrating and overly depressing that Sonic's friends thought he was dead, with only Tails talking sense among them, only Tails going through the denial state of grief. That's not how the brain works. But there were still some genuinely amusing moments in the story that gave it a lot of charm, all starting after things started looking up for Sonic. Tails' note was funny, and I really liked how Sonic messed with Eggman as a ghost, making the airship fly around all crazy and having an arson, murder, and jaywalking list of orders for him, which actually had a legitimate punchline at the end. It had a really satisfying conclusion, and even gave Eggman karma for mistreating Snively, though he deserved it, but still. They really put a lot of care and attention to detail into the ending by having him be punished and having Snively get the one-up on him for even that small moment. Honestly, the story is harmless fun. I still didn't really laugh at this story, but I can tell that the humor has improved. This is the kind of lightheartedness and comedy that Sonic needs, not Pontiac rap ridiculousness. The second story was kind of boring for me at first from the lack of dialogue. I praised it for letting Nicole do something logical and not overpowered by electrocuting a robot, only for her to immediately go back to cheap Deus Ex Machina mode. How is that satisfying? It's good that Sally with Nicole is a lot more useful, to the point of being able to actually accomplish stuff on a solo mission without needing Sonic to save her. This really does help. But one, I still feel like her going there alone is really stupid and overly risky for someone so cautious and against taking risks. Even though it makes sense that her ego/desire to not look weak would make her act irrational again because of that. And two, Jeffrey promptly shows up. So the potential of Sally accomplishing things on her own is immediately shattered. I'm gonna choose a lot safer with him around, so it's not too bad. I don't entirely hate Jeffrey right now. He does something to actually earn hatred much later. But I don't see much of a reason to really like him either. He's just there. I just want him to be competent and useful. That'll be good enough for me. I feel like this was a pretty good story, rather than something that frustrated me as a whole.